Welcome to the United Credit of America, the journey to prosperity using your personal credit. This is your narrator, Ali Tarafdar, and author. Getting started. First of all, congratulations. You're about to learn the most powerful system that is custom built to help you fix and get better personal credit. In the next few chapters, you will learn a step-by-step process to successfully fix your credit for the better, all the while being able to create a solid and sound financial plan for your future. I know a lot of times people end up making purchase decisions when it comes to buying books on notions that it'll actually solve a problem for them or hope that something in the book itself will provide them with some clarity. And often those decisions are disappointing due to the fact that those books are written and structured in a very poorly formatted way. I can personally assure you that the decisions you have made today in reference to getting this book is beyond justified. If you're listening to this, same goes for this ebook and audiobook. My promise to you is that once you go through the material that I have provided to you, you will not only propel you forward with your credit, but it'll also open up the possibilities that you otherwise would have missed. It's true that there are a lot of credit repair gurus out there who are constantly advertising their services and justifying the high fees because of some proprietary method that no one knows about. Well, I'm here to tell you that most of these methods are nothing but a few tweaks and tricks that can easily be found if you know where to look. While others may write expensive and outdated credit repair books on how to follow their strategies, my goal for you is to give you the necessary resources needed so that you are confident in getting things done for yourself. You see, the secret to so many credit repair companies is the idea of profiting on the laziness of consumers. And albeit that they have great systems that are set up to get the job done efficiently, if consumers were to take matters in their own hands and be in control of the process themselves, there is no telling of what kind of possibilities there would be. Some of you may be afraid of doing things yourself, as you've never been in a situation where you actually had to fix your credit or negotiate with your creditors. Let me tell you, don't let that fear stop you from achieving what you want most and what you most desire. Success in your own life and for you to get the outcome you want. I'm simply handing you a solution to help you achieve the results that I've done so successfully for my customers and the company that I ran. In fact, some of these strategies provided here are superior to their systems, or some of these credit repair gurus out there, as I'm accounting every tool that can give you the best outcome. Another thing I would like to emphasize on about this book is that it comprises of two parts. The first part strongly revolves around preparation, mindset, and determination, while the second part focuses on the technical side of credit repair. And the reason why I created the book this way is due to the fact that when it comes to credit repair, a lot of the people that I personally consulted had given up due to the inconsistencies and their inability to pursue the objective until the end. It's not their fault, as there were no preparation done to take the task wholeheartedly. To make sure this problem doesn't repeat itself, I've added the first part of the book, which contains 6 chapters. I've also included some of these resources and tools which can be downloaded if you go to bestcreditresources.com/credit book tools, so that everyone gets the necessary help to get the job done. With all that said and done, I hope you get all the help that you need by going through this book and that you're able to achieve the success that you so desire. Let's begin our journey. Part 1. Mindset, Preparation, and Determination. Chapter 1. Why Credit Matters. Here's a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. One's philosophy is not best expressed in words. It is expressed in the choices one makes. And the choices we make are ultimately our responsibility. For over 7 years of my life, I've personally observed hundreds of families go through the credit crunch while barely being able to sustain. Of those families, one particular story really stood out. In fact, it's probably one of the biggest reasons why I decided to dive into the credit repair business and credit rebuilding business. Although this story is in particular not one of those things that are common in a common situation, but they are among many others of the type of people that I've served. It's deeply inspiring and has given me insights into the hidden struggles of the everyday American who fight to survive and prosper. About the year 2009, around mid-May, I came across a client whose name I won't be able to disclose. Of course, it's due to confidentiality. But what ended up happening was she got herself into a pretty tight situation due to overutilization of her credit cards. This wasn't the worst part. She was actually on average between 26 to 29% interest rate on each of them, and she was about to file for bankruptcy. To me, She was not any ordinary client. She had a unique story behind why she racked up those debts and credit card bills and why she was struggling to maintain those high-interest predatory payments. While going through analyzing her file, I realized that a lot of the debt was used as cash advances to support her high-rate mortgage payments, which was because of the fact that the rates were suddenly changing on her. And if anyone is familiar with what happened back in 2008 with the subprime lending market, the horror stories begin to unfold. My client was struggling as she got herself into trouble by thinking and assuming that the home prices were going to go up, as everybody was talking about them at the time. And unfortunately at the time, she thought to herself that everybody and everything was going to be good. And when it meant that they can get mortgages with no money down and all these great options that were being advertised, she can borrow money for practically no money down for 3 of her homes. Prior to the rate hike, she was actually cash flowing, which means making money on top of all her expenses, of about $200 on each home, which resulted in a $600 passive income for all 3 of her homes. But when the rate hike took place and it changed, she was negative $500 a month, which meant that she owed $500 each month on top of all her existing expenses. And that was it. Just like that, she can no longer afford her 3 homes, which led her to borrow from her credit cards. Now, what would happen if she ran out of credit to borrow from her cards? How would she sustain these mortgages, and how would she be able to keep her homes? Well, as it turns out, she was unable to maintain her debt, and she was over the limit on most of her credit cards due to the stacking interest rates and the fact that she couldn't maintain the payments, so her balances kept adding up due to those fees. This was a true horror story. Do you know what the worst part was? She actually got those homes for her children, who were all unable because they themselves had personal credit challenges. You see, my client was not in the middle-aged woman who had plenty of money. She was actually in her retirement, and in fact, she was just an everyday mom like most of my customers. The only difference with her was that she was given false hope, and she took the responsibility of helping her kids without really thinking about the worst-case scenario. So what was the end result? Well, the fact is she lost all of her 3 homes, and her children were actually left to find apartments to live in financially distressed neighborhoods and compromised areas. And that's because of their personal credit challenges themselves. And albeit that they each had children to take care of, that was one of those things that nobody ever dreamt of. Fortunately for my customer, we were able to salvage her credit due to some of the tips and tricks that I'm going to be sharing with you throughout this book. And thanks for those extra savings that she was able to achieve, which in fact was much greater than when she started off, she can actually afford to go into retirement worry-free. Now let me ask you this. Why did I share this story with you? And what was the moral of this story? Well, it all boils down to one word, and that is responsibility. See, for my client, it was too late, and she assumed the default of her mortgage payments, which in turn got all 3 of her homes into foreclosure. Could this have been avoided? Maybe, and maybe not. But that's beyond our understanding, right? And quite frankly, beyond our emotional comprehension. What I do know for certain is that she didn't have to go through the situation in those circumstances exactly as it happened and unraveled if she had done things differently. The key behind credit responsibility lies in the aspect of her 3 children who failed to stand up to the challenge when it was presented. Due to their inability to borrow because of their poor credit scores, their mother had to suffer financially, and it could have been a lot worse than it was. She could have ended up going back to work due to the lack of cash flow and savings, which would be because of her credit card conditions. Now, fortunately for her, she didn't have to do that, and that's of course no thanks to their kids. Now, one thing I'd like you to understand is that I'm not blaming them per se, but I am implying that if they were responsible with their personal credit and understood it and took the time to educate themselves, things could have worked out differently. Being responsible with credit is the obligation of everybody who is attempting to borrow as in a need in today's societal standards. People think that maxing out balances and maintaining minimum payments is a norm, where in fact it's the worst thing you can do for yourself. It's crucial to grasp the importance of looking at credit from a whole new angle and to respect the system that it is behind. Fortunes have been made by using credit properly, where the other extreme is that people lost their homes. Same example as my customer. So everybody really needs to boil down and study the credit system and stay up to date. The truth is that it doesn't take that long to fully comprehend, and it goes a long way, especially when you're in need of credit down the road. There are obvious benefits to maintaining a good credit score, and if you're able to demonstrate good credit worthiness, Not only will you be able to borrow with cheaper rates, but you'll also be able to increase your credit capacity gradually. This is very important, especially if you're considering buying a home or looking at investing in real estate. Aside from the traditional benefits of credit, here are some of the additional things that you can enjoy by having a good credit score. Number one, your job qualifications become easier, as a lot of employers nowadays tend to check your credit. Number two, you can get cheap car financing. You can actually drive the car you want instead of a compromised expensive loan that you have to pay on a car that you really didn't need or want. Number three, qualify for higher insurance benefits. You can actually leave your family a legacy and not debt instead. Number four, you can get better business financing. With great credit, it's a great tool to raise capital for your startup or your existing businesses, or if you're looking to buy one. Number five, you can actually find better places to rent if you're considering renting, and live in a neighborhood that provides superior value for you and your family, and it's safer. Number six, you can actually become a guarantor for a real estate transaction and cover a lot of that topic in the bonus chapter, but it's one of those ways to perpetuate your wealth forward. See, the benefits are endless, right? It's just the tip of the iceberg. There are hundreds of other things that you can do potentially if your credit was on top notch and you kept up to the point. So I'd like for us to focus on how to make sure that we're on top of it all when it comes to the credit trends and what's happening in the industry and what are some of the resources needed to fully comprehend the different rules and changes that are constantly being made. You can actually go and grab some of the stuff and information that I'm about to discuss by going to www.bestcreditresources.com/credit book tools. Beyond that, I hope you grasp the importance and are starting to see the many benefits that good credit can provide for you. More importantly, the benefits and rewards that it can provide for your children and your family. Statistics have already indicated that the leading cause of divorces in household is due to financial concerns. Do you know what the majority of those concerns are? It's actually debt and credit concerns. Can you imagine living a life that is free of those concerns and having more and more children around both their parents instead of them being shuffled and traveling from one home to another? That would solve a lot of problems, and I'm certain that life would be much better if people were financially able to grasp that. But like everything else, it requires determination, hard work, perseverance, and most importantly, your willingness to take action. If you're not able to take action, then no one can help you. There is another way to look at why credit matters. I want you to picture something in your head for a second. Imagine the following scenario. You own a lot of farmland. And in this land, you're able to plant various types of crops, which include fresh vegetables and fruits. And not only that, due to the size of the superb land that you have, you're able to grow a great diversity of different types of fruits and vegetables. You're not limited to one choice. And this allows you to now sell these type of different variations to earn profits and feed your family. And one day you become wealthy because you grew your farming business. And then something terrible happens. A great storm comes by and sweeps your entire farmland, and not only that, it kills all the hard-worked, harvested fruits and vegetables that you worked to grow. What do you do now? How do you feed your family now? Well, if you were smart with your money, you would have saved for a rainy day. And not only that, you would have saved, but it would have been enough to give you sufficient time to recuperate or regain the momentum that you had when all your crops were at their best height, size, taste. That's what a smart farmer would have done. But unfortunately, thousands of farmers out there are not all educated in disaster planning and are not well prepared financially to be able to handle such a blow. So the same can be said about credit. Now imagine that farmland was your actual personal credit. The crops that you harvest were your scores. And for every category of fruits and vegetables, picture it as the different types of debts that you carry, which in turn signifies your ability to handle different debts with different lenders. Just as easily as the storm coming and sweeping away your harvest, the same can be done for your personal credit, if you're not careful. And like any smart farmer, you are financially prepared. You would have, in those circumstances, be able to borrow new credit to divert the financial stress temporarily from yourself. And those rates would have been cheaper thanks to your well-harvested credit scores. And that is exactly why it's important to be well prepared, plan ahead of time, and consider the different angles of risk that you can potentially be in when it comes to your finances and especially your credit. With that being said, I want you to understand and realize that you're not alone if you're thinking about whether or not you'll be able to do this and whether or not you'll be able to get the life that you desire when it comes to your finances. Everything is possible. in due time, and my hope for you is that you grasp everything that I'm sharing with you in this book so that you're able to successfully regain control of your credit and, more importantly, your life. And in summary, remember, credit is an asset if you know how to use it right. Having good credit gives you access to great borrowing rates, better financing options, access to better job qualifications. Most importantly, provides you with a cushion in times of difficulty. You can actually open up a business using your personal credit. If you have good credit and you have that responsibility, people will take you seriously. And last but not least, always have a backup plan and be prepared for the worst case scenarios, as you never know what kind of financial storms lie ahead.
Chapter 2. The Simplicity of Leverage. A quote by Warren Buffett. When you combine ignorance and leverage, you get some pretty interesting results. It's not uncommon for people to misunderstand the whole concept of leverage. Too many people are confused with it. And a lot of people, it's a method in which you put a certain amount of money and you borrow a greater amount than your initial contribution. Now, while it may technically be considered leverage is a whole lot of different things, right? It's not the best way to look at it. In fact, leverage is a more complex methodology. Leveraging comes in many different shapes and forms. And when it comes to personal credit, it's a tool that is used largely for essentially negotiating and positioning yourself. To better understand leverage, we need to simply look at it and get its core fundamentals to discuss how we can use that in this book, specifically when it comes to your personal credit. And you'll also be able to grab the concepts and are able to easily understand what I am attempting to demonstrate. So when it comes to leveraging credit, right, you have to take into consideration a variety of factors. And these factors are ultimately what creates a credit rating or a score for you. Here are some examples below that affect the way your credit is rated. First, the different types of credit accounts that you carry. You also have the history of the current accounts on your file. You have the payment history, including any late payments that you've had. The amount of inquiries, which are essentially accounts or creditors looking into your file in order to extend credit to you in consideration for the application. You also have the balances on each of those accounts and the credit limits available in contrast to that balance. Now, those are some few yet major factors that lenders review on your credit report when it comes to extending money or any type of credit to you. And that is the reason why you need to learn on how to master the art of leveraging your credit so that you can actually get the outcome that you desire when it comes to borrowing. Now, often what happens is there are complexities, right, that cause confusion when it comes to understanding the credit report. For example, some lenders tell you that you don't have high limit and low balance, so they won't be able to lend you anything. And in contrast to that, you have other completely different scenarios where they tell you that the amount of limit you have on your debt is the maximum amount permissible that can be borrowed based on a person's credit rating. So what opinion do you go with, right? Who's right? Who is wrong? So in the world of credit, especially credit cards and loans, one thing is for sure, and it's certain. And it's that the fact that you need to assess and audit your own scenario prior to approaching any lenders. As a borrower, you have the responsibility to know what you're entitled to and how you can achieve those results. So most people end up asking the wrong questions, which is the exact reason why they don't get the answers, and they get the wrong answers. For example, instead of asking, hey, can I borrow X amount of dollars? They should be asking instead, hey, can I borrow X amount of dollars, or how can I do this? And by asking the right questions, you open up the creative elements of the lenders instead of the generic no answer. And you see, leveraging is something that everyone should be familiar with if they plan on buying a home, borrowing money for a business, probably renovations, providing yourself with perhaps some emergency funds, etc., etc. The list goes on and on. Therefore, getting a grasp and taking the time to understand the system behind how leveraging works will do you a huge favor. It's not all that technical. In fact, it's more of a question on preparing more than anything else. The question is, well, how do you prepare to leverage? So every person has different needs and what they want, which translates to approaching things in a very different way and a different angle for every single individual. So in that sense, it's important that people know themselves well. Sometimes emotions take the best of us and we make decisions that we end up regretting down the road. And a good majority of our life decisions revolves around making financial decisions that we have to live with. Unfortunately, there is no time machine where we can go back and fix our regrets or mistakes. And trust me, I would have done that 100 times already. The next best thing we have is to learn from our mistakes and to educate ourselves to make more informed and wise financial decisions for the present, and the future. Now, it's not that every decision we make financially will give us the best outcome. At times, you may be stuck with two bad choices. The best thing you probably can do is to kind of mitigate that and say, well, which of these is the least hurtful? Other times, you may have two good choices, which is, for example, a financial product or an investment to choose. The end result is, at the end, you need to analyze. As I stated, it's best to make decisions based on knowing your needs, knowing yourself, your wants and desires, both short and long term. And you might be asking, well, why? Well, it's simple, because short-term gains may look attractive and desirable, but what truly matters at the end of the day is the long-term outcome. And I'm confident you probably heard that 1,000 times, but I'm here to tell you that it really does matter, which is probably why a lot of wise financial gurus such as Warren Buffett mentions it time and time again. Now, with that said, leveraging doesn't have to be complicated. It's fairly simple, and I'll show you how to analyze your needs when it comes to borrowing and leveraging funds. Over the course of my professional experience with customers, I've witnessed many individuals and families who are over-leveraged and are living paycheck to paycheck just to get by. It's obvious it doesn't sound like a position that you feel comfortable in. However, a good majority of American households are in the exact same situation. There are some exceptions, like that of my client that I've discussed in the first chapter, but overall, the picture is pretty much the same. And to assist you, I've put together a cool analysis tool that you can use. It comprises of a series of questions followed by some recommendations depending on what you've answered. You can download that tool at bestcreditresources.com/creditbooktools. Once again, bestcreditresources.com/creditbooktools. The first step in understanding what you need boils down to your current financial condition. If you're working a 9-to-5 job, earning a decent amount, and can get by without needing to borrow, then it would probably be wise to use your credit a bit at a time. Now you may be asking, well, why is that? Well, it's simple. Because using some credit and being able to completely pay it off sooner shows the creditors and lenders that you actually are responsible. It gives them more confidence in you, and it keeps your score active. Here is an example of that. So for example, let's say you're earning $3,500 a month, and you drive to work every day, and let's assume that your gas costs around $400 a month. After all your expenses, you're left with around $1,200 per month. In that sense, if you were to use your credit card for the gas expense and paid it off at the end of each month, you would not have to worry about the interest expenses, as the debt would have been paid in full. The strategy will give you a simple leverage where your credit score's muscles are being worked out. Now, going further, assume that you're maintaining this strategy for about 3 to 4 months. You'd be able to actually go out to your credit card company and ask for a limit increase. Now, why on earth would you want to do that if you barely use your credit card? Well, the simple thing is, by doing so, you're actually strengthening your credit score over time. Soon enough, you'll be able to borrow tens of thousands of dollars without even a struggle or resistance. Simple tricks like that can go a long way. Well, the best thing about building a high score is that it opens up many possibilities for you, including participating in lucrative business syndications and ventures. And we'll talk more about that in our bonus chapter. Another interesting thing that leveraging is, and it can do for you, is a negotiation tool. Clients who have higher credit scores can go to lenders and make a request to get cheaper interest rates. The same applies for your existing creditors who you're banking with. This, of course, means that you have demonstrated to them that you're able to maintain your payments on time and are able to keep your balances low. I want you to imagine for a second where you had just lost your job, are now in savings, and have tremendously good credit with very low balances. And due to your scores, you're able to actually borrow 2 to 3 times your present salary. This can be extremely useful as you'd be able to borrow the funds, enough to keep aside for payments, as well as being able to sustain yourself for very cheap rates. Again, your scores matter in contrast to how much rates you'd be paying. This, of course, would mean that you're hopefully looking for a job while you're doing that as you're leveraging your credit. Truth is, this happened a few years ago with a friend of mine. He was in the business of IT consultancy, had tremendous experience, and was paid handsomely to do what he did. The company actually that he was working for at the time, they had some internal issues, right? This included some of the office politics, a power struggle, and really no direction. And due to these unfortunate events and the struggle behind the administrative scene, my friend was eventually let go, and they were no longer able to sustain employees. See, the problem with that was that my friend actually set himself up for a standard of living that was meant for his income, right? He was leasing a brand new BMW X6, which he just signed a few months ago prior to being laid off. He put a significant cash balance towards the luxury property that he was living in, which meant that most of his savings were now tied up in that property. And he had a hefty mortgage, which he needed to sustain if he wasn't going to keep his home. So my friend did not anticipate being laid off, and it put him in a very difficult position. All in all, after having met for a few minutes over some coffee to catch up on things, he actually slowly broke the news to me. I've noticed that his tone and energy were shaken. He was more docile, quiet, and he didn't order this usual banana and chocolate muffin that he likes to take with his gourmet medium roasted coffee. From that alone, I was sure that something would happen. It's no surprise that he was definitely unpleasant. Yet, there was still hope and some good news. As it turns out, my friend has been very frugal with his credit and had a decent score. Most of his credit and card balances were below 10% of his respective limits. And he had some pretty sizable cards. He was always hesitant to use credit as he didn't want to pay the high interest rates on some of those cards. Now, he never thought of using a line of credit, which typically come with some pretty good promotional rates for a few months. This would allow him enough time to go out there, scout, and find a new job. And with that said, he and I discussed in great length the options that he had and what he can do to position himself so that he can actually go out there with peace of mind and some financial support while he needed it the most. Later that same day, he went to 3 major financial institutions and applied with each. Guess what happened? He was immediately approved for $50,000 on one, $40,000 on another, and $100,000 with that with which he has a credit card with the highest limit, with his primary bank, where he keeps his checking and savings account as well. And just like that, he was able to leverage $190,000 in cash lines of credit with very low rates for the next few months. And that is the true power of leverage and positioning. His consideration towards his credit and frugal spending on his credit cards allowed him to take advantage of a situation that otherwise would have been devastating. And just so you know, he actually did find a new job thanks to his good experience and his persistence. Now, there are countless situations where leveraging can be useful, but sticking to the point, it all leads to you knowing what you need short and long term. The rest is up to you and how you prepare and what steps you take. So in summary, leveraging is a negotiation and positioning tool to give you competitive advantage. Leveraging is simple and can be applied at any time, regardless of your credit situation. To get an idea of what kind of leverage you can take advantage of, it's important that you conduct a thorough needs analysis to give you a determination of the best outcome pertaining to your unique situation. And when it comes to leveraging, always focus on the long-term picture. Chapter 3, the poor versus the rich mindset. I'm going to give you a quote by Menu Bennett. Anyone can train to be a gladiator. What marks you out is having the mindset of a champion. Probably one of my most favorite subjects. The debate between the poor mindset and the rich mindset. As typical as it may sound, the poor have a tendency of blaming the rich for being too greedy or selfish, whereas the rich blame the poor for being careless and ignorant. Now, who's to say who is right and who is wrong? Is the grass greener on the other side? Well, from experience in dealing with both sides and understanding what matters to each, I can tell you confidently that everyone has their own issues to deal with. While it may be easier to blame the rich for every problem that deals with financial distress, it's not the wisest approach. The truth is, the rich have their own fair share of problems that they have to worry about. And the fact is, the grass is not always greener on the other side. And just like any average person, the rich have certain tendencies, and they're actually normal human beings who have families, children, and everyday issues. They are not special, nor do they breathe a special kind of oxygen. In fact, they are probably always under constant pressure and are extremely active when it comes to business and work. They sleep less, work harder, and put in more hours than the average person, with more sacrifice in their timelines, not being able to see their families or friends. And they are extremely careful with their time. Now, with that said, the same can be told about the active poor. In today's standards, the middle-class families are heading towards poverty, and those who are positioned well enough to sustain and rise above the rest will be the fortunate few who amass a great deal of wealth, whereas the other half will suffer tremendous losses and end up literally broke. Why is that the case? Well, the simple reason is because a lack of financial education and not being able to prepare when it comes to disaster planning. We talked about this in our second chapter where we discussed the farm story, or the metaphor of the farmland. I also want to make something very clear. When I say poor, it means that there are 2 different categories. The first are the ones that are actually poor in terms of finance, lifestyle, and their current conditions. The other is the idea of thinking like a poor in a sense that every decision or choice is anti-progressive in terms of wealth. You don't need to be financially poor to be considered poor. The way you think and how you set yourself up in terms of mindset has everything to do with it.
Have you read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill? It was a great book, and it describes the power of positive thinking and ultimately the law of attraction. Now, there are dozens of books written on this subject, and all of those focus around one key principle, and that is the idea of thinking positive and keeping an enthusiastic mindset at all times, and that includes difficult times. Often, when people are faced with challenges and adversities in their lives, they tend to blame, complain, and even get frustrated. They fail to grasp the opportunity of being optimistic and are immediately thrown into a world of negativity. This eats away their creative thinking, their positive and rich mindset, as well as their ability to concentrate so that they can actually figure out a solution that'll help them instead of complaining. Negativity is the worst enemy. It's the way of failure. There is a reason why the poor remain where they are and why their conditions remain unchanged, no matter how much they pray and quote-unquote hope. I'm not against religion, but I'm simply implying that getting out of a financially distressed situation requires a little bit more than faith. It requires mental toughness and the ability to keep a strong mindset. If a person is constantly negative and is always thinking about their problems, then that is what the life will throw at them. The concept of you get what you think about all of the time is 120% true. If you're so caught up in your negativity that you barely have the time to be productive or think of anything else, you'll never see the light at the end of the tunnel. That is why you have to start thinking positively. Look at every situation through an optimistic standpoint. The glass is half full, not half empty. The journey from one destination to another is about saying, we're almost there, but not how much longer. It's a perspective of looking at loss as a learning opportunity, but not as a negative impact in life. I know that at first, thinking positive and having an optimistic mindset is not easy. In fact, for many, it'll be hard given their current conditions. Some are struggling financially, right? They're having it hard already. Life's unfair to them. They're not in the mood to be positive. Well, I'm here to tell you that no matter what life throws at you, you have to be able to pick yourself up, pick up the bat, and have the mindset that every single time you hit that ball, you'll hit home run. Every single time. As you practice being positive and having a mind of a champion, you gain more confidence and have the ability to overcome any negativity, no matter how bad a situation may seem. Now, with that said, I want you to know that I'm not a motivational coach or someone who mentors people who are negative. I'm simply reinforcing the idea of staying positive, of having a strong mindset. Once you begin to master the concept of positive thinking, a lot of stuff for you will change and you'll feel more enriched. Wealth starts with thinking, which will lead to planning, and finally the step to execute will come. Everything is like a system. Once you begin to understand the functions, the mechanics of an organized system, everything will become clear. It'll be easier to follow. The real struggle is the idea of perceiving things as a system and not as they are. Once you get past that barrier and the hump, you'll be good to go. The great notable difference with the people who are used to living paycheck to paycheck in comparison to the wealthy is the idea of adapting and practicing the wealth systems. The wealthy and rich practice daily habits like if it were a ritual. Their mind is firm, and when they work as though it's the only thing that matters at the moment. So much determination and persistence is what gives them the ability to confidently do anything they wish and earn anything they want whenever they want. Not to say that it's not possible with those who are regular employees or who want to enjoy life. However, the rich feel that they need to make a difference. They need to feel empowered, and for them to be able to feel comfortable in their own wealth, they have to show evidence through their work ethic and their mindset. Human beings in general are creatures of habit. We know this. They feel the need to belong to a society or a group. They are more comfortable in social environments and feel the need to have fun, enjoy life, and live to their fullest. Now, due to those needs, habits are formed over time, and they become so indulged in those habits that it is hard to let go. Over time, certain bad habits form, whereas in other times, some good habits become part of their lives. In a majority of those cases, though, the bad habits have a tendency of overshadowing the good ones because at the moment, they seem like fun. They seem enjoyable. The truth is, as time goes by, these bad habits are what kills opportunities, wealth, health, and not to mention your long-term happiness. What's the point of living a life to the fullest if you aren't going to have anything left at the end of the day? If you know for a fact that you're capable of so much more, why enjoy life at a level of mediocrity and not at the stage of the elite or wealthy? Is it that we're afraid of success, or are we held back thinking of failure?
Why is it that there's so much reluctance and resistance when it comes to giving up a bad habit for the benefit of being more successful? Are we afraid that our peers, our social circles, friends, family will look at us in a weird way, leave us behind, or ignore us altogether if we no longer participate in their regular activities of fun and games and joys and habits? There are probably hundreds of things that goes through people's minds when it comes to actually thinking about giving up a habit or doing something that is out of the comfort zone. And the truth is, it's never easy, and it requires a certain level of discipline to be able to maintain and practice habits of wealth and prosperity. There's a reason why there are more middle class and poor people in contrast to the wealthy. While it may be easier to sometimes just blame the wealthy for manipulating the markets and causing mayhem on Wall Street, it's no one's right to judge them, as we're allowed, and we've allowed it to happen. Think about it for a second. Did customers have to go out there and get 2 to 3 mortgages when they can barely have the discipline to handle one? Did anyone, quote unquote, force these customers to sign up for a house just because mortgages were easy to come by, even though they didn't have stable permanent jobs? Is it the banker's fault that he gave you a document you failed to understand the fine print and ignorantly signed it because you're so caught up of, quote unquote, living the life and keeping up with the trend? I'm sure you know the answers already. Again, creatures of habit. We're so caught up with the short-term gains that we barely see the road ahead. It's almost like going into the sea without a life jacket and emergency gear. Being unprepared, even though nothing is holding you back from preparing, is like planning to fail. Why? Well, why do we insist on constantly being left behind, on the side, concerned and cheering for others, where we have all the tools and resources to be able to control our lives and be successful? The only ones that are capable of answering that is ourselves. If we don't take time and respect ourselves to look deep into what we desire most, with good intent and long-term gain, then I'm afraid nothing will change at the end, and the results will remain the same. As Albert Einstein once said, expecting different results from doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. And knowing that and acknowledging that fact to be true, it's imperative that we shift our mindsets and prepare to take what we truly deserve. Having the mindset of the wealthy and rich is not difficult to achieve. As I've stated before, it's a question of discipline and being able to maintain habits of success. You need to give yourself a reason to wake up every day, feeling the need to make a difference and the need to prosper in all areas of your life, especially in finance. Why does this at all matter? And why am I emphasizing on this topic of mindset? Well, the answer is it's because with the right discipline and mindset, you'll be able to build a stellar credit profile. You can actually leverage better, and you have a lot of positive things that'll come to you. This will tremendously and directly affect your financial well-being as well as your life. You'll end up being happier, you'll feel more confident, making purchases that you can actually have control over and not worry whether or not you can actually afford it. See, lenders and creditors will genuinely respect you and feel compelled to give you a better rate and beg for your business. And you'll be able to participate in unique opportunities that wouldn't be available otherwise. But again, all that requires discipline to achieve and requires the mindset of a champion. So, are you a champion? Are you training to be one? Or will you let life defeat you? In summary, the poor and rich have different mindsets that directly impact their lives, thinking, and the way they perceive things. Humans are creatures of habit, and everything we do in practice is based on our conditioning. Everything in life is like a system. Once we grasp it, it'll be easier to understand it, and we can know what to do with it later. Chapter 4. Action as a Choice. Starting off with a quote by Thomas Jefferson. Do you want to know who you are? Don't ask. Act. Action will delineate and define you. We've all heard of that phrase. Action speaks louder than words. Well, that is exactly the case when it comes to your personal finances and especially your credit. Action is needed and indeed the best choice you can make when attempting to figure out and fix your personal credit file. Now, those who lack action and initiative are the ones who end up suffering long term. That is true for most cases. For example, if you fail to take action on an opportunity, you end up missing the opportunity and it goes to someone else who is willing to take that action. Everything in our lives is based on action and reaction. If we love doing something, such as going to the park and playing football with our friends, we take the appropriate actions that lead us to that direction so that we're satisfied by the outcomes. Our immediate reaction is the satisfaction we get from having fun and enjoying with friends. Action always warrants a reaction. based on a few factors. The first thing we need to know is that our action will have a direct or indirect consequence, or a series of consequences. For example, if we fail to fix our credit, the direct consequence will be bad credit score. And due to that bad credit score, our indirect consequence will be the fact that we won't be able to borrow credit, get a loan for emergency, or in cases where we need them. The second factor is the aspect of understanding the both extremes of each action we take. The first component is to understand that by not taking a certain action, we deny ourselves any outcomes, whether positive or negative. The second component to that is that by taking action, we can study the outcome and better ourselves depending on what those outcomes were. Only by knowing the extremes, which directly translate to worst case scenarios or best case scenarios, we have the ability to learn from our successes and failures. There used to be an investor that I knew who loved funding technology type of deals. He was a big fan of Google and enjoyed looking at innovative up-and-coming companies. The one problem with him was that he tends to overanalyze each deal and ends up not taking action, when it's the best time to do so. And due to that analysis paralysis situation, my investor friend has lost on many different opportunities. The craziest thing is that even though he gets through those analysis paralysis situations, he gets a lot of deal flow every single day, and many new entrepreneurs are attempting to raise capital. However, this won't always be the case. Similarly, I recall having a fund manager who used to control hundreds of millions of dollars back in 2007. Prior to the recession, he was aggressively underwriting mortgages and providing financing for those who qualified. When the subprime bubble burst and private mortgage companies alongside their funds went bust, this fund manager was safe. Why? Well, because his strategy to write mortgages were based on a very stringent set of rules and qualifications. This made it convenient as he had very little defaults on his portfolio. Well, it sounds great. So what's the problem, right? Well, since 2008, his underwriting activity slowed down drastically as he was scared of the market and he lost confidence in people's capacity to be able to handle any types of debt. This essentially caused him to close down his fund as investors were already hurting, and the fact that the fund's performance went down because he cut down in the financial activity. Because of that fact, the fund manager failed to take appropriate actions in terms of continuing his business activity based on the steady growth he was already experiencing. He lost the opportunity to serve millions of dollars where he could have made a lot of money in the process. Sometimes, our failure to take action can cost us millions of dollars, such as the fund manager I just described, while at other times the consequences aren't that bad. Whatever be the case, it is important to be able to take action so that we don't have regrets down the road, because regrets are the worst thing anyone can have, especially financial opportunity type of regret. With that said, it's important that when you take action, you understand the reasons behind them and that you feel comfortable to a degree that allows you to unconsciously make positive and progressive actions. This can only be achieved by constantly taking the appropriate actions that lead to a satisfactory reaction. And for you to have a satisfactory reaction, you need to be compelled to take action in a positive way. If you're looking for some clarity or some guidance in reference to taking the right actions when it comes to your credit, I have put together a checklist that you can easily follow. The checklist is designed to be used on a daily basis. Only by using it daily can you get the maximum benefit of what the checklist is intended to do. And in order to get access to this checklist, I encourage you to go over to bestcreditresources.com/credit book tools. Again, that's bestcreditresources.com/credit book tools. Remember, the best way to get positive results is by taking progressive action. Being that this book is to help you repair and rebuild your credit, it's important that you consider all the advice and steps in reference to taking action to be geared towards fixing and rebuilding your credit. Although the tips and strategies provided in this checklist can literally help you become more successful in other areas of your life, our core focus here is credit repair. Also, it's important that you learn to become accountable for your actions. This simply means that you keep track and push yourself to take certain actions that are considered high priority. For example, disputing a certain item in your credit report that is potentially holding you back from getting a mortgage may be considered an urgent action in this scenario. As stated before, every action has a reaction, and we always need to know the two extremes of each action. Going back in our previous example, we may be disputing an item that is affecting our ability to borrow a mortgage. The worst thing that can happen is that the item comes back verified and stays on your credit report. The best scenario would certainly be that the item comes off your credit report, which means that you should be good to go in terms of applying for a mortgage so that you can lock down that home that you wish to get. Either case, all actions warrant a reaction.
If we stuck to the worst case scenario, we'll find ourselves redisputing or re-engaging with the process of getting the item removed from your credit report. This time, however, you'll have additional references, which would be the correspondence from the credit bureaus to help you leverage what you need to get the job done. If all goes well, everything should work out at the end. Again, every action warrants a reaction. And if the outcome was positive and the item came off from your credit report, the follow-up action would be to talk to your mortgage broker and apply for the mortgage with your newly updated credit report. Ideally, the best way of looking at taking action is to consider it a step in the right direction or wrong direction. Based on the outcome and the results you get from taking the action, you have to adjust your course accordingly. Also, every action taken until the problem is fully resolved comprises of components in a master system. In essence, every action, no matter how small or how big, acts as components that comprise and complete a jumbo system. Ultimately, the system is called the desired result that you wish to achieve. To help clarify, let's assume that our desired outcome is to get rid of the negative items in your credit report. The system as the situation is called a clean and positive credit report. The actions that we'll be taking, such as disputing items and engaging with the credit bureau, are considered components that are meant to give us our desired outcome. For every action we take, we adjust them depending on what kind of reaction we get. This will eventually give us the path we need to complete our journey and for us to get the results we want. One vital component to remember about action is that certain reactions may hurt us and let us down. However, it's crucial that you remember the principle of adjusting your course based on the reactions that you get. This way, you will have a systems mindset and focus only on the desired outcome that you wish for. As described in this book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, who constantly describes the element of persistence to be the number one reason as to why people are able to achieve tremendous wealth and lead to a prosperous lifestyle. When it comes to action, the two best combinations are persistence and speed of implementation. Now, why does speed of implementation matter? When it comes to your finances, the sooner you make or take the action, the better. Have you heard of the saying, strike while the iron is hot? Well, in the world of finance and credit, that saying is a daily ritual. In the world of money, a single hour or minute can be the difference between making hundreds of thousands of dollars or basically losing all the same. Take a close look at the stock market. Every day, people are losing their shirts while others are earning so much that they can simply not worry about working for the rest of their lucky lives. And even then, the risks associated with putting your money in stocks is moderately high. Now, the credit industry is all about timing. Due to the fact that everything you borrow comes with a predetermined rate and adjusts over time depending on your borrowing and payment patterns, speed of implementation does not matter so much. However, when it comes to fixing your credit and building it, it's a whole different story. If you wait too long to fix or build your credit, you're leaving money on the table, and that is a huge missed opportunity. The actions you take with the right speed of implementation can give you tremendous success. And even if those actions bring about negative reactions, well, at least now, if you act fast enough, you'll be able to reach a resolution much faster with a dedicated system schedule in mind. So in summary, action taken warrants a reaction, whether positive or negative. And you should always adjust your course of action based on the reaction you receive. Speed of implementation matters most when it comes to taking action. The sooner you act, the faster you will reach your desired outcome. In the world of money, every action can have major consequences. Chapter 5. Investing in Yourself. I'd like to start with a quote by Hill Harper. I think the number one safe haven where people put their money is to invest in yourself first. The single most important element in your life is you. The fact that you're taking action and bought this book or listening to this ebook already shows me that you're serious about achieving positive results in terms of your credit. Not only that, the fact that you actually took your time to read this book or listen to it and come this far demonstrates to me that you made a tremendous investment towards yourself. And that is certainly a positive step towards achieving and maintaining positive and rich credit. Now, through the first 4 chapters, I've described to you the importance of why credit matters, how to be able to leverage to achieve the best results, preparing yourself by having a positive mindset, and the necessity to take action. Now, with all that said, the most important point in all of this is to be able to invest in yourself first. Now, there are hundreds of ways that you can do this, but the concept and to stay on topic, especially when it comes to your credit, there are a few major factors that you'll need to consider to be well invested in yourself. First, you have to understand your perfect outcome. In the world of credit and debt, the perfect outcome can mean or come in many shapes and sizes. Perhaps you're simply looking to settle down and have a cozy home. Or maybe you're looking to do more with your credit, such as starting a business that you feel will grow to be very successful one day. Whatever the outcome, you need to always invest in yourself first. Without doing so, you risk being unprepared and may potentially lose out on getting the best results that you desire in terms of your credit and perfect outcome. Now, when it comes to having perfect credit, the first thing you'll need to do is analyze your needs. I've mentioned this in the first chapter where I talk about a thorough needs analysis for yourself. It's almost like a business plan, except the fact that it applies to you achieving what you want based on a time frame that you feel comfortable with. What's important in this step is that you're realistic with your needs and that you're able to give yourself enough time to achieve the set results. A perfect outcome actually may not be perfect at all, right? Remember, every action that you take may or may not give you the desired result that you want. And what's important is that you keep working on your desired outcome no matter the reaction that you get. Sometimes you may get several negative responses prior to getting a positive one. And it's important to look at this in a way that is a positive way forward and not consider it as a 3-step back and 1-step forward concept. In the world of credit, every step you take, whether positive or negative, may be considered progressive. You may ask yourself, well, how? Well, it's because every step that gives you, when it comes to reaction, is a clear indication on what to do next without the need to guess the next move, which is very critical. Second thing, take time analyzing. When it comes to analyzing your credit situation and finding a path towards the outcome that you desire, it's important that you take some time and put together a document with your needs in mind and have that document handy. This document should also be able to help you identify your strengths, your weaknesses, so that you have an idea of how to approach your desired outcome. Be honest with yourself and be realistically accurate. If you lie about what your weaknesses are and convince yourself that you have certain strengths, while in reality you do not, it'll be extremely deceiving when you fail to get the results. The analysis document should be able to give you some direction as to what personal strengths you can work with, as well as what weaknesses you need to work on. Beyond that, analyzing your situation will help you pinpoint your financial concerns while giving you an idea of what needs to be done in order to reach your objectives. This is another point that you need to be realistic towards. Sometimes it means that you have to give up on a brand new car just because you need to save the money for a rainy day. It happens. At other times, you may have to look at the different priorities and they may be conflicting, and you'll be left on choosing that one that would make the most sense based on your current financial situation. Third thing I'd say is take time to read books that actually add value. There are hundreds of reasons why reading a book may make sense, especially for you. However, not all books are actually relevant. When you have an idea of what types of strengths and weaknesses you carry, you will be able to identify what areas to improve and what to refine. Books can help you achieve that in a decent amount of time. It may take time to find a good book or two, and that is why I've prepared a good list of books for you based on key financial, personal, and motivational needs. You can actually get a list of those books and recommendations by going over to bestcreditresources.com/credit book tools. Once again, bestcreditresources.com/credit book tools. It's important that you dedicate time to reading whenever you get a chance. I know that a lot of you who are reading this book or listening to this audiobook now are doing it because you're obviously fed up of empty promises, not being able to achieve results, and want a source that can help you get the desired credit outcome. Think about committing at least an hour a day dedicated to learning something that gives you a distinct advantage of gaining knowledge on something that contributes towards your well-being. It is also a good idea to listen to certain audiobooks such as this if you're on the go or are too busy to grind down to the books themselves. There are many places that you can access great audiobooks. Audible is a great place to start. Amazon owns Audible, and they have a wide selection of titles for you to choose from. There are obvious benefits of listening to audiobooks aside from reading the book itself, but I would still recommend for you to have the book at hand. Based on the 3 factors that I just shared with you, you should be well on your way to building up some confidence and skills required to comfortably handle any credit-related matters as well as other areas of personal and business finance. Remember, one golden rule: learning never stops. As you begin crafting yourself towards the things that you wish to learn and accomplish, you will find yourself more and more curious towards learning more genuinely. And that is perfectly normal, and I encourage you to make the time to pursue those curiosities, especially when it comes to learning to gain more knowledge. Another advantage of learning through books or audiobooks is that those who are credible and have given their commitment by reading a book are not only sharing their experiences with you, but it's as though they were there with you and you're learning through them because of their learning curve so that you don't have to go through it yourself. It is often said that learning from others' mistakes is the wisest thing to do. If you go through my recommended reading list, you'll find a lot of topics that are not just related to finance, but also provide insights into prosperity in all areas of your life. And that is important because you will need them. Investing in yourself is not only about finances, but also about building self-awareness to the stage where you're comfortable in other areas of your life and for the angle in which you have confidence in whatever that you do. In summary, when it comes to investing in yourself, there are three major factors, which are understanding your perfect outcome and learning to go through challenges. Take the time to analyze everything related to your financial situation and be honest about your strengths and weaknesses. It's also important to read books and listen to audiobooks as they provide deep educational content through experiential learning so that you can get some better learning objectives. And finally, you have to keep in mind, learning never stops. Always be learning, always be curious. Chapter 6, Organizing for Success. Let me start with a quote by Colin Powell. There are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. Now comes the time to be prepared and organized. In all the things that you do moving forward, especially with your credit and finances, being organized is probably the most crucial and critical factor. The information shared in this chapter is for you to be used based on your preferences. Not everything I say here will apply to your unique situation, but it's important that regardless of where you are and what stage you're at, that you follow the directions given in terms of organization. Being organized means that you are preparing yourself efficiently to be able to save time and money. There is great evidence in this to the fact that a lot of people who get in the aspect of credit repair are all over the place in terms of timelines, letters, responses, etc., and so on and so forth. It's not easy dealing with this because you will eventually get stuck if you're not sure of what direction to pursue or take. Organization is essentially your own personal navigation system. This means that if you can organize yourself, you can accurately guide you towards your destination. That is true, especially when it comes to credit repair. Now, I understand that it may seem difficult to keep track of everything, particularly the fact that you'll be doing this all by yourself. But it's also important to realize that when you leave important things in the hands of others, you lose the control and the outcome over what you get. So with that being said, organization should be used to help you achieve your desired outcome independently. Once you obtain positive results, you'll be in position to expand on those efforts with less and less work over time. Another notable thing about being organized is the fact that you'll be able to build a system for yourself so you can tweak over time and obtain those positive results. Having a systems approach to doing credit repair will not only help you get better results, but give you some peace of mind knowing that you can anticipate certain things and that you'll be in position to fix or adjust the outcomes based on what you get. This is true control. The minute you lose that control, you can't rely on getting any dependable outcome. That is also a big reason why a lot of credit repair companies make money. Because once a client loses that control, it's easy to persuade them to spend more money as they are completely unaware of the stage or processes that they're in within a credit repair journey. And with that said, let's get into the steps of organization that are detrimental to your credit repair success. When it comes to the organization in the context of credit repair, there are essentially 4 elements that we go through. The first element is formulate a plan of execution. The second step is to know the laws and your rights in reference to what you're entitled to. The third step is to understand and study the industry. And finally, the fourth step is to be able to execute a strategy for the desired outcome based on all the first 3 steps. Let's explore each of these steps in further detail. Step number 1, the plan of execution. This step is heavily dependent on your personal needs and investment philosophy. If you are unsure of what your needs are and what you would like in the near future, it'll be difficult to create a plan of execution that'll have and carry any real substance. I have discussed this stage in Chapter 5 to the context that you need to know and understand your immediate and short-term needs. Only then can you really begin to envision for yourself the exact picture of where you'd like to be. Creating an execution plan involves looking at your current and family situation. And some of the most common types of questions that you may ask yourself are: 1. How much am I earning right now, and is it a good time to leverage credit? 2. Am I looking credit as a solution to help me overcome my current financial needs? 3. Is credit a temporary solution to a long-term problem? 4. Can me and my family be well off without credit? Or is it that I need credit in order to enhance my current lifestyle? 5. Do I have children that I have to care for in the short-term future so that they are financially maintained? 6. Does credit help me achieve my family financial objectives? 7. Do I need a home due to a growing family? 8. Am I able to save money each month thanks to a steady job so that I can invest in the future? 9. Is my current job unstable, or do I for a fact know that I'll be in good position to keep my job without the fear of being laid off one day? 10. What will our family do in dire straits? And finally, 11. Do I have an emergency savings account that I can access to maintain our current lifestyle for at least 6 to 12 months? All the above referenced questions are just examples of what you can ask yourself when it comes to preparing an execution plan. Once you have the appropriate answers for them, the goal is to be able to put it in writing and observe them based on their order of priority. Now, having a list of needs written down based on these questions will help you tackle the important ones first. Step number 2, understanding the laws and your rights. Like anything else, being informed and educated in reference to the laws that revolve around credit is essentially the most important thing to understand when doing credit repair by yourself. You also need to know what rights you have in reference to those laws. Customers who aren't aware of these basic things will often depend on credit repair companies and third parties for advice, which may or may not be accurate all of the time. Now, there are places to learn about the laws pertaining to you and what you can do in specific instances that affect your credit. The most common laws that obviously affect your credit repair journey are the Fair Credit Reporting Act, or FCRA for short, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, FDCPA for short, the HIPAA, which is Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act, as well as various other consumer protection and privacy laws. For the most part, that alone is a tedious task just to learn, writing down notes and finding the way it may apply or may not apply to you. To help you avoid this long and enduring journey, I've put together a master list of the laws in basic format to help you navigate through the different scenarios and situations that you may currently be in. The master law section can be found by going to bestcreditresources.com/credit book tools. Once again, bestcreditresources.com/credit book tools. Once you familiarize yourself with the laws that apply to you, you will be in position to understand what legal rights you have. Knowing these rights ensures to those that are reporting derogatory items on your credit report by breaking certain laws that you'll be able to enforce specific actions that you're entitled to. Not only will this help you in the credit repair process, but it'll show the perpetrators that you are well prepared and are completely aware of the situation in reference to your credit reports. Step number 3, understand and study the industry. The credit industry is a dynamic platform that is constantly changing. From what you are eligible to what you may do with credit is always being modified every couple of years. Aside from the borrower's perspective, it's important to understand that the industry from the legal standpoint as well. We often have a tendency of being so focused on our own credit needs that we forget to look at the news and events that are shaping the credit industry based on legalities. Another great way of learning about credit is to look through the local court records and spend time on the computer docs, taking notes based on case laws that recently occurred. This will give you a trend on what is being done to uphold the laws against the Fair Credit Reporting Act violations. Not only that, you'll begin to explore the different sections of the laws that are used in these cases to protect the consumer as well as what perpetrators are doing to protect themselves as well. You never can be too prepared when it comes to learning about credit industry and what you can do to move forward with your personal financial and investment needs. The more informed you are, the better choices and decisions that you're able to make. Step number 4, execution of the plan. Now that you're at this stage, where you're familiar yourself with the standards of the different types of laws that are there to protect you, to where you can use those laws to enforce your legal rights, it's important to put the plan that you've created into execution. For some, this may be a difficult step, which is why I strongly urge you to read this section carefully. Assuming that you're comfortable with the first 3 steps, create a simple visual diagram of what steps you will take to repair your credit. For example, at the very top, you may want to create a box that says Obtain Credit Report. Then immediately after that, create a box beneath it that labeled Identify Derogatory Items. There are more to add, but this was just a teaser to understand how to flow your chart. To make it easier for you, a template was created so that you don't have to worry about starting from scratch. You can actually download this at bestcreditresources.com/credit book tools. bestcreditresources.com/credit book tools. Once you have created your flow diagram, the next step is to take on a separate notepad and write down the steps you'll take for each of those boxes. An example of this is provided by the following. Step number 1, obtain credit report. You can go on a website. Step number 2, print the report to be able to circle and highlight the important parts. Step number 3, check information in report in terms of personal information to ensure that it is accurate. Now, of course, there are obviously just an example, but you should be able to get the picture just from this alone. By creating documented steps for each diagram, you're essentially building an execution plan that will give you clarity. Without clarity, you will struggle to put things together and it'll end up wasting a lot of your time. You want to make things as smooth and as easy as possible. In summary, there is a 4-step organizational process that everyone needs to go through to prepare for credit repair success. Those 4 steps are creating a plan of execution, understanding the laws and your rights, understanding and studying the industry, as well as creating an execution plan. When organizing, you have to look at the process as a systems-based approach. Everything boils down to your personal needs and investment philosophy. This concludes part 1 of the United Credit of America, the journey to prosperity using your personal credit. To learn more, visit the link in the description of this video. Or if you're listening, go to bestcreditresources.com to be able to access the ebook. Thank you.